Hey there, Hillsiders. Happy Wednesday to you from beautiful Christiansburg, Virginia. I'm hanging out for a few days with my mentor and friend, Chuck Shoemake. And I wanted to today give you the last installment of the series I've been doing on Israel conquering the Promised Land, specifically looking at some of the things that happened with Joshua and Caleb. So let's fast forward to here in Joshua chapter 14. It's about 45 years from the time that initially the spies had spied out the Promised Land. And as we know, Joshua and Caleb were the only ones to give a good report. Says God can take this, he can empower us, he can give us what we need to go in, even though there's giants in the land. It didn't end up happening because of unbelief, because of rebellion. Okay, we've covered that. But what we may not know is at the heart of the Promised Land, there was a city called Arba. The Kiriath Arba, the city of Arba. And Arba was a big, bad, tough dude. He was so strong, he was so tough, he was strough, which is a combination of strong and tough. I coined that phrase, #strough. In this situation, doesn't matter how much Israel has gone after the Promised Land, in the heart of the Promised Land, there's still this very important, very strong city, and it's being ruled by this strough man, this tough old dude, and he's gigantic, he's like Goliath, he's one of those type of individuals. And Caleb, in Joshua 14, goes to Joshua and says, dude, it's been 45 years since God said he's going to give us this Promised Land. And I recognize that nobody else is going after Arba, the city of Arba. Nobody else is going after it. And so I, at age 85, would like to go in, take out Arba, wipe out all the people in the town, and then be able to enter into the inheritance that God has given to me and given to us, so we don't have to worry about this anymore. Now, if you're thinking about an 85-year-old guy and thinking you're really going to send an 85-year-old guy in to take on the biggest, toughest, strongest dude in the entire land. And under most circumstances, we might say, yeah, God bless your heart. I'm in the South, so bless your heart, Caleb. I know your heart means well. But no, instead, Joshua says, amen, bro. You got this. I'm going to give this to you. You go in there, you take it, because we know the same God that promised us initially is going to do this. He's going to take the Promised Land and give it to us. He's going to be with you as you go into this place. So Caleb calls out to his buddies and those in his tribe, the soldiers who were following him, and says, come on, guys, here we go. And it says they went into Kiriath Arba, and they conquered Arba. They conquered all the other giants that were there, and Caleb gave it a new name called Hebron, and he claimed that as the inheritance that God was giving to him, and this is the most significant chunk of land in all of the Promised Land. And why is that? I'm really glad you asked, because in Genesis chapter 23, we find the story of Abraham and Sarah has come to the end of her life, and she's died. Now, God has led Abraham for hundreds and thousands of miles from the land of Ur the Chaldees, where he's from, and he's taken him to this place, this Promised Land, and he says, this is the place I'm going to give to you and to your descendants. It's not going to be right now, but later. But right now, I want you to have this particular plot of land. So Abraham, as he's looking for a place to bury Sarah, goes to the tribal elders in that city of Arba back in the day, and he says, can you sell me some land so that I can bury my wife here? And they go back and forth, and eventually Abraham buys a plot of land in Arba/Hebron, and he buries Sarah there. And this is the place where God says, I'm going to give this to you. So we flash forward hundreds of years to Caleb, and it's not until Caleb says, I'm still as strong as I ever was because of who God is. I still believe in the promises of God because of who he is, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to take this out because God said he's going to give it to me, that we see God's promise to Abraham being fulfilled in the actions of a man who fully entrusted and believed in God, Caleb, in this particular place, at this particular time, to say, all these years ago, the promise that I made is being fulfilled. And now Caleb is saying, because God promised it to Abraham, I'm claiming that for me, I'm claiming that for my descendants. And we're going to walk into this, and I'm going to live it out. And it's no longer going to be called Kiriath Arba, it's going to be called Hebron. And it's going to be one of the main capitals, one of the main centers of life for all of Israel. Now, I relay this story because I wanted to, number one, kind of wrap things up with Caleb and Joshua. But number two, that sometimes the promises of God that he's given to us or to our ancestors are not going to be fulfilled in the same generation. They're going to be fulfilled later on. But each generation plays a key role in being able to contend for that which God has promised. And it was God's perfect timing for Caleb to be able to step up at this moment, at this time, in this place, and say, the God I serve is just as strong as he's ever been, and I don't care if I'm 85, I am just as strong as I ever was, and I'm going to go into this believing that he's going to deliver me, and he's going to deliver this into my hand. God's promises will be fulfilled, and he's going to use even the most bizarre of circumstances, even sometimes the most unlikely characters to bring that about. My encouragement to you today is to believe that God will continue to bring about what he has said he's going to bring about, even if it seems to be an impossible task. Number two, it's just to remind you that even though circumstances in front of us may seem completely impossible, the God we serve specializes in the impossible. And no matter how strough, strong and tough, hashtag that, remember? No matter how strough a situation is, we can know that the God we serve will always empower us, always strengthen us, always walk with us, will never leave us or forsake us. And for that, I'm thankful, because whenever he promises an inheritance, he makes the way for us to get there, and he also blesses the work of our hands as we walk in obedience to him. So God bless you all the way from Christiansburg, Virginia. May you have an incredible rest of the week. Continue to believe for and contend for God's promises in your life, no matter what kind of giants are in front of you. Because if God is for you, no one can stand against you. Have a great one.